No one believed mermaids were real until cameras exposed screaming evidence scientists cannot explain anymore. Today, worldwide, now.
What you're about to witness shattered careers, silenced experts, and turned myth into documented terror. These are not animations, not stories, not folklore, but raw, unfiltered footage dragged from the ocean's darkest thresholds. Faces in nets, eyes staring back. Anatomy that should not exist, yet does. Scientists froze, crews screamed, and the sea stayed silent. Every frame raises a horrifying question. What else has been watching us from below while we laughed it off as legend? The deeper you look, the less human certainty survives.
Before we dive deeper, like, comment, and subscribe to Mystery Footage Uncovered now.
In the South China Sea, a lone fisherman whispered to himself as his action camera recorded what surfaced beside the boat. A tail flicked gently, deliberate and balanced. Eyes followed the movement of light. Sonar showed nothing else nearby. The compact body suggests an organism evolved for extreme compression. Flexible bone matrices, reduced lung structures, and skin cells adapted for bioluminescent signaling all point to a life spent under immense pressure. Size may not be fixed. Growth could scale with depth, expanding as pressure increases. In motion, it resembled a miniature stealth sub, gliding without turbulence. Folklore surrounding the Lusca describes small sea humanoids as omens, never the threat themselves, but signs of something vast beneath the waterline. If a creature this small reached the surface intact, it likely did not come alone in evolution. What larger form does this body grow into, far below where pressure reshapes everything? During a scientific dive off Indonesia, an ROV pilot froze as the vehicle's LEDs illuminated something unexpected on the seafloor. A face emerged from the sediment. Particles lifted slowly into the water column. Audio cut as the crew fell silent. The facial musculature and limb placement suggest an amphibious predator built for ambush. Reinforced cranial bones, pressure-adapted eyes, and slow-twitch muscle fibers indicate patience rather than speed, waiting instead of chasing. If authentic, this organism may predate human mythology itself. It moved like a submarine shadow, barely registering on sensors. The scene echoes Ningen reports describing pale humanoid figures resting motionless on the ocean floor, watching rather than hunting. Legends often fixate on eyes staring back from the deep. Perhaps that is not metaphor. If the deep can look back at us, how long has it been observing our descent into its world? During a violent night storm in the North Atlantic, a trawler's CCTV captured chaos on deck as the captain shouted over the wind. Teeth flashed briefly in the floodlights. The net strained, cables shaking violently. Crew screams were dismissed until the footage surfaced. The aggressive posture suggests a defensive response, not an attack. Dragged rapidly from crushing depth, the organism appeared built for pressure. Dense skeletal support, limited surface vision, and bioluminescent glands that dimmed under stress. If real, this could represent a top-tier abyssal predator. Massive, perhaps the size of a shipping container, yet moving with unnerving precision. Old sailor logs warned of net takers rising during storms, claiming pressure shifts forced them upward. As oceans warm and human activity grows louder, those pressure boundaries are changing. If storms pull them closer to us, what happens when the deep no longer stays deep? A ship's security camera caught the moment no one moved. A salvage officer stood rigid by the railing as something unfamiliar lay motionless on the flooded deck. A horned silhouette rested under blue deck lights. Mist rolled through the frame. Boots circled, but no voices followed. The body structure suggests a deep ocean humanoid adapted to crushing pressure. Reinforced rib cartilage and elongated spinal processes point to vertical load tolerance, while a heavy tail fin implies powerful upward thrust rather than horizontal speed. Its proportions do not match known marine mammals. If real, this could represent an ancient marine offshoot that developed bioluminescent skin cells and extreme cold resistance. Witnesses later compared its presence to a knife-edge shadow, heavy, silent, and wrong. Old winter storm accounts describe horned figures dragged aboard when pressure gradients spike violently. The footage ends abruptly. If the specimen was stunned rather than dead, what happened 'd, 'once the cameras stopped watching?
'Once the cameras stopped watching, what happened 'once the cameras stopped watching? 'Once the cameras stopped watching, what happened 'once the cameras stopped watching? 'Once the cameras stopped watching, what happened 'once the cameras stopped watching? 'Once the cameras stopped watching, what happened 'once the cameras stopped watching? 'Once the cameras stopped watching, what happened 'once the cameras stopped watching? 'Once the cameras stopped watching, what happened 'once the cameras stopped watching? 'Once the cameras stopped watching, what happened 'once the cameras stopped watching? 'Once the cameras stopped watching, what happened 'once the cameras stopped watching? 'Once the cameras stopped watching, what happened 'once the cameras stopped watching? 'Once the cameras stopped watching, what happened 'once the cameras stopped
A crane-mounted work camera captured the moment a deck supervisor screamed to halt the winch. The crew did not argue. They stepped back instead. A jaw opened impossibly wide. Ropes strained against a gray sky. No one approached. The elongated torso and exposed rib structures align with a deep-sea predator evolved for near-neutral buoyancy. Dense musculature and pressure-hardened organs suggest survival far below human reach. Its cranial shape hints at ancestry linked to ancient cartilaginous fish rather than mammals. If genuine, this was likely an apex hunter pulled upward far too fast. It did not thrash. It hung silent, suspended like a drone beneath ice. Kraken-era legends warned of net haulers screaming skyward when disturbed, not attacking, being displaced. This one did not choose to surface. If it resisted being pulled up, how many remain below that have never been touched by human gear? A lone photographer adjusted focus in disbelief as a long figure rested unmoving along a remote shoreline. The water remained calm, undisturbed. The body lay stretched across stone. Wet hair drifted in the wind. Nothing else moved. The posture and limb placement suggest a semi-amphibious species capable of resting above water for short periods. Dense bones would allow repeated submersion, while skin adapted to salt abrasion indicates prolonged exposure to turbulent coastal zones. Movement appears slow, efficient, and deliberate. If authentic, this lineage may predate modern surface mammals. It behaved like a stealth vessel at periscope depth, visible only because it allowed itself to be. Similar reports appear in Ningen sightings, describing pale humanoids sitting motionless near ice or rock, watching rather than fleeing. It showed no signs of distress. If it was not stranded, then its stillness suggests something else entirely. Was it waiting? On a muddy bank, multiple fishermen pulled together in silence as something fought the net with heavy force. No one joked. No one filmed for laughs. A scaled tail thrashed violently. Arms strained to hold position. Faces stayed serious. The creature's freshwater tolerance suggests a migratory deep-sea organism capable of entering river systems. Adaptive kidneys, reinforced vertebrae, and parasite-resistant skin point to long-term survival away from salt water. The tail delivered immense power without chaos, controlled, mechanical. If real, this may be an ancient coastal species remembered in indigenous river spirit traditions. Witnesses described it as moving with the mass of industrial equipment yet responding precisely to resistance. Rivers were once thought to be boundaries between worlds. If this organism crossed that boundary, how far inland can the deep actually reach, and how often has it already done so? A diver's helmet camera recorded a moment of paralysis as bubbles stalled mid-rise. The reef remained clear and bright. A pale form slid past the frame. Dorsal spines rippled in sequence. The diver stopped moving. The streamlined body and articulated spines suggest a pressure-borne swimmer optimized for silent navigation through complex reef structures. Flexible bones reduce sound transmission, while enhanced low-light vision and faint bioluminescent markings may support communication rather than hunting. If genuine, this could represent an evolutionary cousin of abyssal fish that retained humanoid traits. Its movement was precise and restrained, like a blade cutting water. Umabozu myths describe reef guardians appearing briefly before unexplained disappearances, never engaging directly. The encounter lasted seconds. If divers only glimpse them when paths cross, how often do these forms pass just beyond the limits of human sight? Beneath a coral overhang, a stabilized camera recorded stillness breaking apart. A marine biologist hovered just beyond the frame as the shape began to expand. A mass unfolded slowly. Multiple limbs uncoiled in sequence. No one moved as it grew larger. The hybrid anatomy suggests a deep-sea cephalopod offshoot fused with a vertebrate framework. Distributed neural clusters along the limbs imply intelligence spread throughout the body rather than centralized in a single brain. Pressure tolerance appears extreme, while bioluminescent skin nodules resemble abyssal squid adaptations. If authentic, this points to an ancient lineage where cognition evolved through tentacular control. Early sailors described kraken forms with human faces embedded among arms, not because such faces existed, but because fragmented perception was all they could process. The entity did not react to the camera. If it remained still long enough to be filmed, how long had it been observing before anyone noticed it was there? A phone camera captured panic as two fishermen shouted and retreated at once. The sound of impact arrived before understanding. A tail slammed into the deck. Water sprayed in red-gold arcs. No one laughed this time. The violent motion and immense tail musculature indicate an apex deep-sea swimmer forced rapidly upward. Reinforced vertebrae and dense muscle fibers suggest adaptation to sudden pressure gradients rather than surface resistance. If real, this predator may have been displaced by thermal shifts or subsurface instability. Witnesses described its movement as heavy, industrial, yet alarmingly fast. Leviathan-era warnings claimed storms, wake what sleeps below, not summon it. This one fought the surface with everything it had. If the next one does not resist, what happens when something comes up willingly? As waves receded along a rocky coast, a witness whispered while holding a stabilized phone. The sea itself seemed to pause. A head turned slowly toward land. The tail shifted without urgency. Nothing else reacted. The upright posture and deliberate gaze imply advanced awareness rather than instinct. Skeletal strength appears sufficient for partial land support, while lungs adapted for brief surface exposure suggest intentional surfacing. Sensory systems may rely more on vibration than sound. If real, this points to a watcher species, ancient, patient, and capable of choosing stillness. Its presence matches old Lusca warnings of shoreline sentinels appearing before storms, not as threats, but observers. It did not retreat. It did not advance. If it was watching the land instead of the sea, the question is no longer what it is, but what it was waiting for from us. An internal deck camera recorded the recovery in silence. A containment team lifted the body as the first mate watched without speaking. A scaled torso lay unmoving beneath white lights. Gloved hands pressed down carefully. No orders were heard. The combination of a human-like face and a fully developed caudal fin suggests a deep adapted hominin variant. Extreme bone density would allow survival under pressure, while reduced lung volume and an oxygen-efficient vascular system imply long-duration submersion. If real, this species may have evolved along abyssal shelves, using bioluminescent signaling and entering torpor states to conserve energy. Witnesses later described the body as heavy, whale-like, yet unnervingly silent. Leviathan-era records mention sleeping sea women brought aboard who never awakened once removed from depth. The footage ends before containment procedures are shown. If the specimen was sedated rather than deceased, what protocols were activated once the cameras stopped recording? A crewman froze beside the rail as a deck camera held steady. The boat idled, engines low. Kelp clung tightly to the body. Scaled limbs remained still. Eyes stayed open, unblinking. Algae-covered skin suggests prolonged surface proximity. Rather than displacement, this form appears adapted to linger near fishing grounds. Reduced metabolism, kelp camouflage, and possible dermal symbiosis indicate deliberate concealment rather than accidental exposure. If real, this represents observation behavior extended over time. The figure held position like a predator drone, waiting rather than hunting. Umabozu accounts describe weedmen, seen shortly before equipment failure or navigational loss, never engaging directly. It did not flee when noticed. If it learned to hide in plain sight, how many times have vessels already passed it without realizing what they were near? An action camera captured the moment a recreational diver drifted backward, breath hitching as distance collapsed too quickly. Green eyes locked onto the lens, limbs extended mid-water, breathing turned uneven. The upright swimming posture and elongated extremities indicate a highly intelligent organism capable of precise buoyancy control. Joint articulation appears optimized for full three-dimensional movement, suggesting neurological complexity beyond known marine fauna. Pressure-tolerant organs hint at deep-water origin rather than surface adaptation. If authentic, this could represent a lineage split between ancient primates and marine environments. Faint bioluminescent cues near the eyes may function as threat display rather than communication. Umabozu myths describe glowing-eyed figures approaching lone swimmers before dissolving into blue silence. The entity did not rush. It closed space deliberately. If it approached once, how often has it observed divers who never realized they were being watched? A bystander ignored warnings and crouched close as a swollen form lay stranded at low tide. The phone camera did not pull away. A bloated face blinked slowly. Mud shifted beneath its weight. The wind carried no sound. Thick subcutaneous fat and a compressed neck suggest an organism adapted to cold, high-pressure zones. A slow metabolism and dense connective tissue point to deep-sea life, where gravity is irrelevant. On land, its mobility appeared nearly non-existent. If real, this may be a scavenger lineage related to ancient cetaceans, massive, efficient below the surface, but helpless once tides fail. Kraken-era accounts tell of sea giants that expired quietly when stranded, not thrashing, simply ceasing. The body did not attempt to return to the water. If this was only one that failed to make it back, how many never surfaced at all? A fisherman froze mid-cast as a zoom camera fixed on a small figure perched unnaturally still along an inland reservoir. The shape balanced upright. Water remained undisturbed. No birds approached the area. The diminutive size and controlled posture suggest a juvenile stage of a much larger aquatic species. Flexible bone structure, early caudal muscle development, and vibration-sensitive sensory organs indicate adaptation for growth under pressure rather than size at birth. If genuine, this implies inland migration routes through deep river systems, not accidental displacement. Its presence felt misplaced, silent, and deliberate. Lusca folklore describes child-sized watchers appearing far from the sea, always alone, never approached. The figure did not flee when observed. If juveniles reach inland waters, where do the adults remain, and what depth hides them? Fog swallowed sound as a flashlight-mounted camera shook violently. A deckhand stumbled backward, breath audible. A pale face rose into view, fingers spread wide. Ambient noise seemed to vanish. The partial emergence and aggressive posture suggest a stress response to surface exposure. Dense bones, limited lung capacity, and sensory overload imply the organism avoids full surfacing by necessity, not fear. If authentic, this may be an apex watcher species that relies on darkness to approach human environments. Old Leviathan logs describe sudden screams on night decks, followed by complete silence, with no bodies found. The figure retreated as light intensified. If illumination repels them, what happens during power loss? When decks go dark and the sea decides what comes closer? Near the Azores, a deckhand lifted something alive from the water, phone camera shaking as he realized it was moving. Tiny fingers curled reflexively. Soft gills fluttered once in open air. No one expected it to be so small. This appears to be a juvenile form, possibly an early developmental stage of a much larger abyssal species. The bones looked soft, likely unhardened by deep pressure. Translucent skin may allow direct oxygen absorption, while a slow, cold-adapted metabolism keeps energy demands minimal. If real, this suggests reproductive or parental strategies previously unseen in deep-sea organisms, possibly mammalian in nature. The body emitted a faint glow, like a dying LED, weakening rapidly at the surface. Old Umabozu legends spoke of sea children appearing before ships vanished, perhaps because such young cannot survive above their native depths. If this was only a child, how enormous is the adult waiting below? Floodlights washed the deck as 3 crew members stood frozen. A security camera captured what none of them approached. A pale body lay motionless. Water pooled beneath rigid fins. No orders were spoken. Smooth skin, reduced facial features, and a fully developed caudal fin suggest a deep-pressure species with minimized surface anatomy. Heavy bone density and torpor capability imply survival through long dormant states at depth, not exposure to air. If authentic, this lineage may be ancient, adapted to abyssal silence where movement is costly and light is absent. Leviathan-era warnings claimed, sea bodies die when the sky touches them, not from injury, but incompatibility. The body never reacted. If this one surfaced only to expire, how many others reach the air a single time and are never seen again? A handheld phone recorded visible fear as deckhands stepped back in unison. No one reached out. A blue-scaled tail twitched once. The head rolled weakly. No one approached. The coloration and scale patterns suggest bioluminescent adaptation overwhelmed by daylight stress. Pressure-hardened vertebrae indicate strength at depth, while surface survival appeared severely limited. The body did not thrash, it faded. If real, this organism may have been forced upward by sonar interference or seismic disturbance. Umabozu myths describe blue-bodied beings appearing briefly before ships vanished, not attacking, emerging only when displaced. The deck remained silent after movement stopped. If this creature was driven out of the deep against its will, what force was strong enough to push it upward? An upward-facing camera beneath a coral overhang recorded bubbles halting mid-rise as light dimmed abruptly. A face hovered above the lens. Fins adjusted with fine control. Nothing else moved. The inverted posture and sustained observation suggest curiosity-driven behavior rather than aggression. Skin coloration blended with reef shadow, while pressure-resistant eyes focused steadily. Fine motor control in the pectoral fins indicates advanced neural processing. If authentic, this aligns with accounts of ancient watcher species, entities that observe without engaging. Old seafarer warnings describe beings that choose restraint, not because they cannot act, but because they decide not to. It maintained distance, it did not retreat. If it chose not to move closer, the question is not what it could do, but what decision it was making in that moment. Just before daylight broke over the Barents Sea, a trawler's handheld deck camera captured something none of the crew spoke about afterward. 4 men stood frozen as the net rose. A smooth gray upper body surfaced briefly, slick with seawater. The camera trembled as the mesh tightened. Even experienced divers stared, silent, unsure what they were seeing. The visible anatomy suggests a possibly unknown hominin branch adapted to extreme depth. Increased bone density could counter buoyancy, while pale pigmentation hints at life without light. A powerful tail structure appears neither fully mammalian nor piscine, perhaps tracing back to ancient pinniped or cetacean ancestry. If genuine, this physiology implies tolerance to crushing pressure, a slowed metabolism, and faint bioluminescent glands. It moved heavy, controlled, almost deliberate, eerily similar to old Nordic sailor logs describing human-like faces rising from nets before violent storms. If it surfaced once by accident, how often has it lingered unseen beneath working decks? On the Grand Banks, a fixed winch camera recorded an anomaly that stopped a veteran fisherman mid-task. He called others over, voice tight. Through wind and spray, a ridged spine broke the surface. The mast twisted once, not frantically, purposefully. A single still frame left scientists unsettled. The elongated body and armored dermal ridges resemble a deep-sea vertebrate optimized for low-light predation. Dense cartilage may replace brittle bone, protecting internal organs from pressure collapse. Its lineage could predate modern mammals, branching from an ancient fish ancestor long lost to classification. If authentic, faint bioluminescent bands along its sides suggest silent navigation in darkness, moving like a submerged drone beneath ice. The controlled motion recalls early Kraken-era sketches of seamen calmly tearing nets apart, illustrations once dismissed as exaggeration. This footage shows no panic, only intent. If nets can pull one up accidentally, what happens when one rises on purpose? On a quiet dock, fishermen in yellow slickers refused to touch what lay before them. A dockside camera did not zoom in. A skeletal form rested in the open. Fins lay stiff and unmoving. The harbor remained silent. Desiccated musculature and an elongated spine suggest a long-dead abyssal organism, preserved by cold pressure before surfacing. Skeletal ratios do not match known marine species, while remnants of a caudal structure indicate total aquatic dominance. If genuine, these remains may predate recorded history. Early sea monster illustrations often mirrored similar dredged forms, drawn not from imagination, but from things hauled up and quickly buried again. Nothing about the body suggested it belonged in air. If this is what reaches the surface already dead, what still moves beneath us, unseen, intact, and alive? A stabilized camera recorded waves dragging a body back and forth along a storm-dark shoreline as a witness shouted in disbelief. A tail snapped upward once. Water splashed violently. The body never rose. The muscular caudal strike and thick dermal scales indicate a powerful abyssal swimmer built for sustained pressure, not gravity. Reinforced vertebrae suggest immense strength underwater, but surface conditions rendered the body inert. If real, this was likely a deep predator forced ashore by sudden pressure shifts. Witness descriptions matched Ningen reports of pale forms washing up after seismic or storm activity, heavy as whales, shaped like shadows. The ocean did not reclaim it. If storms can expel creatures like this from depth, what else is being displaced as ocean systems grow increasingly unstable? On a quiet pier, a dock worker held the find without speaking. The phone camera stayed close, almost careful. Small eyes blinked slowly. Gills fluttered once. The water around the pier remained calm. The infant proportions and underdeveloped tail suggest an early growth stage of a much larger abyssal species. Soft bone density indicates pressure hardening has not yet occurred. Translucent skin supports oxygen exchange, while neural development appears tuned to vibration rather than sound. If genuine, this implies deep-sea breeding grounds far closer to shore than previously assumed. Later in life, such organisms may glide silently at depth, avoiding detection entirely. Luska folklore describes sea children appearing briefly before vanishing forever. No adult surfaced to retrieve it. If this was only a juvenile, where are the adults hiding? And how close are they? A fixed security camera recorded crew rushing forward, then hesitating. The figure was already moving. A mouth opened unnaturally wide. Water streamed off its skin. No alarms were triggered. The upright movement and apparent strength indicate rare semi-terrestrial capability. Reinforced joints and powerful musculature suggest brief land mobility, while sensory systems appear tuned to vibration rather than sound. Its movement lacked panic, only intent. If real, this may represent a shoreline-adapted offshoot of abyssal predators. Reports of Ningen describe humanoid figures walking briefly before returning to the sea, never pursued. Witnesses often note the same detail, the sense that the encounter was allowed. It stood only once. If one could rise and balance even briefly, how long before another no longer returns to the water at all? A handheld deck camera shook as two fishermen struggled with the net while the captain shouted from behind. What surfaced did not resemble a catch. A human face strained against the mesh. Ropes tightened violently. Screams were dismissed as panic. The muscular upper torso fused to a scaled caudal body suggests a deep-water hominin adapted to extreme pressure. Reinforced bone density, reduced buoyancy tissue, and hypertrophied muscles point to vertical ascent rather than surface swimming. Its proportions did not fail randomly. They resisted. If real, this may be an ancient evolutionary branch that diverged before mammals fully claimed the surface world. Old Leviathan-era logs describe netmen who fought like drowning sailors when hauled from depth, not attacking but desperate to return downward. The footage ends as the mesh cinches tighter. If nets can trap one by accident, what happens when one reaches upward intentionally? A lone witness backed away along wet sand as a stabilized phone camera held steady. The tide had retreated, but something else advanced. A massive form crawled forward. Water drained off armored ridges. The beach fell unnaturally silent. The sheer scale and cranial plating indicate a deep ocean apex organism built for crushing pressure and slow metabolic control. Thick dermal armor suggests protection against both depth and impact, not predators. Its movement was heavy but coordinated, like machinery under restraint. If genuine, this may represent an ancient guardian species derived from abyssal hunters. Kraken folklore speaks of colossal shore breakers appearing briefly, never pursuing, retreating once conditions stabilize. This one reached open sand without hesitation. If it crossed that boundary once, how far inland could the next one go before deciding to stop? A fixed action camera recorded steady breathing as a climber froze on a wave-battered outcrop. The ocean did not react. A green-haired figure leaned forward. Ribs flared once beneath wet skin. The surf remained still. The exposed rib structures and elongated torso suggest a pressure-borne organism capable of brief surface respiration. Reinforced cartilage and dense musculature indicate durability rather than speed, while skin adapted to cold abrasion hints at repeated shoreline exposure. If real, this behavior aligns with watcher patterns, entities resting at boundaries rather than crossing them. Ninja accounts describe humanoid figures perched motionless near waterlines, appearing only when conditions align. It showed no signs of distress. If it was not stranded, then its presence implies intent. What signal was it waiting for before deciding to move? Across every frame, every shadow, and every moment of silence, one question remains unanswered. How much of the ocean still watches us back? These encounters are not just about creatures or myths. They are about boundaries we barely understand, and how fragile our certainty becomes when the deep pushes back. Whether misunderstood life, ancient survivors, or something unnamed, the sea keeps its secrets by design. If these stories made you pause, question, or feel uneasy, you're not alone. Join the discussion, like the video, comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to Mystery Footage Uncovered, because the more we look, the clearer it becomes. Some mysteries don't want to stay buried.